Welcome to the Mind and Milestone second episode, the podcast where we explore the intersection of maternal health, mental health, parenting, and community care. Today's episode is one I've been especially looking forward to. We are joined by Kaleigh Mancha. Is that correct, Kaleigh?
It
Yes,
is, yeah.
Mancha?
You can call me Kay.
Mancha. Kay? Okay, Kay. A licensed mental health therapist, mom, and co-founder of Heart and Soul Collective, an incredible organization rooted in culturally affirming, trauma-informed, and community-based reproductive support in Las Vegas. Over the past several years, Kay has worked closely with families navigating the perinatal period, especially those impacted by systemic marginalization. Through her work, she's witnessed how stigma, fear and judgment, and systemic barriers like lack of childcare, language barriers, and immigration concerns often prevent moms from access their support they need and deserve. In this
Yeah.
conversation, Kay brings her unique perspective as both a clinician and a mother, sharing insights of trauma informed parenting, the emotional realities of early motherhood, and the power of culturally grounded care. So let's dive in. Kay, thank you so much for being here today. It's a truly honor to have you here. Thank you for your time. I know that's
Thank you.
very late for you when you are where you are right now. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So my first question for you is: you are both, right? A clinician
Yes.
and a mom, a family therapist and a mom. So two deeply emotional and demanding roles. In what
hmm
ways do those experiences shape each other? And has being a mom changed how you show up as a therapist or vice versa?
Of course. I think when we're operating from a really authentic place, we can't separate our motherhood from other roles in our life because when we are showing up as a whole person, we are all of those things all of the time. So I've been a mental health therapist for 15 years
Wow.
and I've been a mom for 17 years. So my
17?
journey, yeah,
You have two kids,
my daughter
right?
just turned. I have two living kids, and then I had twins that passed during a second trimester
Mm-hmm.
complicated pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my youngest is 4,
Oh my
and
God.
I'm sure we're going to talk about the age differences and whatnot, but in thinking about my journey into being a therapist, um, I was first generation in
Mm-hmm.
college. I was 6 months pregnant when I graduated with my bachelor's, and
Wow.
then I jumped into a graduate program. And I remember the advice I got at the time when I was applying was don't tell them that you're a mom because
Wow.
they'll think you're distracted.
Wow.
And I think that's the sentiment that we have for mothers is like that you have to separate yourself or you're unprofessional or you're
Yes.
distracted. Whereas once I got into grad school, I was only one of 2 parents in my cohort,
Wow.
and I created a parent support group at my university. I created a cultural competency review committee at my child's preschool at the university I was
Wow.
at. And so it informed my advocacy
Mm-hmm.
because I was so passionate about my motherhood that I think advocacy really comes natural to me. So for me, therapy is an extension of that. And so in the beginning of my career, I worked exclusively with children, and that was
Ah,
really challenging because working with trauma as a specialty made me really hypervigilant
yeah.
in my parenthood. And so I ended up transitioning into working with parents.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a doula. I've been a doula for as long as I've been a therapist.
Wow.
And so as I was helping, especially in the first like 8 years of being a doula, I was working predominantly with Latinx families, families of color. Um, and so the parallels between my motherhood, being a therapist, and being a doula really highlighted that we are well when we have community, when we get to
Yes.
show up as our full selves. And so as a therapist, I think it's rare,
Mm-hmm.
but I invite my clients to bring their babies to session. if you can't find childcare, that should not be a reason you don't get to seek support.
Yeah.
And we might not be able to do the same work if you have, say, 2 kids with you.
Yeah.
But we can normalize mental health conversations. You still deserve care and love, and sometimes connection is what therapy is. And so I've had babies in my office. I've held babies while, clients have gone to the bathroom. I do virtual sessions. And so I think it's really informed the ways in which I normalize that parenthood isn't problematic, that we don't have to separate ourselves.
Yes. And create space for moms, right? In a place that they can feel safe, welcomed, right? Because sometimes we think like as a clinicians, they're not coming, to the office. They are not doing prenatal care. They are not coming for our workshops. But we are not creating a safe space, a welcome space, that they can bring, their children. They will cry. We're gonna need to stop the session. The workshop. We're gonna have a lot of, potential, not problems, but like something that you're gonna need to adapt a little bit, adjust a little bit, right? And be natural about that.
Yeah, I mean, even the idea of changing a baby's diaper.
Yeah.
I have changing pads that are underneath the couch. Oftentimes our sessions are on the floor. My office is completely baby proofed. If a baby or a child spills something, I get to model responsive parenting. And so sometimes in our isolation as parents, we don't get to see other adults co-parent our child in the way that historically humans have required.
Yes.
And so for me, the sentiment that your child is my child and vice versa is a life philosophy. And I went to an Indigenous womb healing gathering back in 2020, beginning of 2020, and they invited children. And so at the time I only had my daughter, and I brought her, and she's a little bit older at the time, so I was like, okay, she'll be okay. And I saw babies in this space, and the first thing they said when they opened up the gathering was, we work at the pace of our children. And now that is my motto. That we can't move faster than them, that there's wisdom in their movement, in the way that they're showing up. And that can be healing too, just sitting and observing instead of trying to quiet them or stifle their creativity or see them as an inconvenience.
Exactly. And we want, of course, some countries more children as here, more, but we don't create a space for them at all, right? We just want to lock them in their daycares and and try later to do something, to correct their behaviors, or to, and even for moms, right? We want them to be moms, to be, workers, to show up for our events, but we are not creating spaces that, they can be part of. And I was thinking, about you, in your journey as a mental health clinician. You were in a school, for mental health. And sometimes you didn't feel welcome there, or that, you needed to hide. And I don't know, I've been feeling that way sometimes, that I can't share about my pregnancy, or I don't know, or the sentiment that I think someone will judge me, right? That that's not, no, right now I am, a professional. I am a faculty, I am an instructor, but I can't, share, or, I can't be a mom at the same time. And it's so hard, how we are going to separate, something that's so strong, right? That's something that is part of you, and it would be so much better if you have all the community, right? All the places that you need to go supporting each other, right? Supporting the mom.
Motherhood isn't just an identity. It's a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
It's a physical journey.
Yeah.
And so when we think about motherhood, we're not just talking about you showing up as a mom, but you showing up as a person who's growing another human. You showing up as a person who is going through an evolution mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually,
Yes.
psychologically, chemically. And so, I think when we say, like, how do we show up in this way when people are judging us? Well, if we judge ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have an opportunity for restorative experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, when I was in grad school, I had to go meet one of my professors, and we were going to debrief some of my cases, and I had to bring my daughter. I had no childcare
Yeah.
at the time for that day. And she was always an amazing child. She boosted my confidence. I thought I was like the perfect parent. I now attribute that to her temperament. But on this day, she was just really tired, and she was 2. And I remember her crying, and I'm like trying to soothe her and still have this conversation. And my professor was like, "It's okay.
Oh.
You can just pause." And then I started crying, and I was like, "Oh my God, in my head, they're going to think that, all these things."
Uh-huh.
And it didn't change the dynamic of the relationship, but it reminded me I can pause.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes
Yes.
we're the barrier to being able to show up authentically, or we're the barrier for ourselves.
This is so
Um,
true. This is so
yeah.
true because I feel that like right now, that yes, I don't want sometimes, I don't want to be unprofessional sharing, about like my personal life and share with people, like that I'm pregnant because, no, I need to, to have like, to be a professional, to only like talk about like research and like I
Mm-hmm.
can't share that I'm tired, right? that I'm getting bigger and bigger, that my hormones are all over the place, but like, what, this is normal, right? Like all moms, like I believe like they feel the same way sometimes, or maybe like some symptoms, right? But I feel that like I can't, right? I can't share. Like the barrier is, yeah, most of the time
Mm-hmm.
it is like in our heads. Of course, like I think like our society as well, right? Like out have like
Absolutely.
the outside
They reinforce it.
reinforce it, yes. But
Yeah.
like I feel that like, yeah, a good amount it is in my mind right now, like that I feel that no, I
Yeah.
need to keep going, I need to keep showing up like in that formal and like professional way, I can't, and it would be
But
so much
what
better,
is
right?
professional?
Yes.
What's professional? And so much of the ways in which we believe we have to operate are rooted in colonization and
Yeah.
capitalism. We're not meant to keep going or to be a facade of ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
so, for example, on my website, I share my personal and my professional because they're not separate.
Yes.
And if I'm going to therapy, I want somebody who I know is a human along with me.
Yes.
I think gone are the days of the blank slate therapist who is stoic and doesn't have an expression. If you come in my office and tell me stuff, I'll be like, "Oh my God, that really happened." I'm gonna be real with you.
Yes.
But on my website, I talk about, you know, that I am a lost mom,
Mm-hmm.
and that I did experience hyperemesis gravidarum, which
Wow.
is a pretty rare
Mm-hmm.
condition, about 1 in 10
Mm-hmm.
pregnant people experience, but it was severe. And
Wow.
after my pregnancy loss with my twins, I experienced postpartum
Mm-hmm.
depression.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my son had heart surgery at birth. And so
Wow.
these are things that are on my website because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not transparent and authentic, then my clients don't get to see people living in that way,
Yeah.
because nothing about my story is to be ashamed of
Mm-hmm.
or is taboo. And the more that we speak to it, the less it becomes stigmatized, the
Yes.
less we perceive it as unprofessional. I've
Yes.
had so many clients come and say, like, "You are a real person, and that's why I wanted to work with you."
The connection, right, Kay? The connection
Mm-hmm.
with the therapist, the health professional, right? Like as nurses, I'm a nurse, right? Like so to create that connection, sometimes you think like, of course, we have like the boundaries and everything else, but like I think this is so important, as you mentioned, like to show that you are a human being, right? That you have
Right.
the same experience as mom. So your client to be, okay, I can
Yeah.
share with like this
Well,
person.
It comes back to like a culturally congruent provider. We know from research that if you have a provider who looks like you or maybe has the same orientation
Yeah.
or identities, that your outcomes are better. And when we look at research, especially for mental health, we know that regardless of treatment style or
Yes.
modality, that it's the relationship that is responsible for a majority of people's improvement.
Yeah.
But also, if you don't have to explain your culture to me, if you don't have to explain the nuances of your motherhood to me because you know that we've shared a journey, it doesn't mean we have identical experiences.
Yeah.
It means you spend less time trying to teach me
Yeah.
and more time trying to connect with me so that I can
Yes.
connect with you. Because
Yes.
therapy's hard, but finding a therapist and sharing your story is exhausting.
It is.
And so if you can get some of that, some of the timeline or the details or the education and shorten that so you can focus on what it is you really need support around, it makes therapy feel more manageable.
Yes, totally agree with you. And yeah, and like for mental health clinicians and other, I think like for other clinicians as well, because one thing that I notice, and I've been, of course, like I've been seeing in my research, but like now, like with like this lived experience, right? Like I want
Yeah.
to connect with the professional. I want to feel heard, right? I want to feel okay now, like they get me, right? And
Right.
one thing that it has been hard for me, like during this journey, it's find like this professional, right? Like someone that's going to
Yeah.
understand me, that's going to embrace myself, my culture, like ask questions, be present, not only the
Right.
protocol, right? Like not only like the okay, this is the script, this is what we need to do with you, but no,
Right.
like I'm a human being. I have like so much more. Not only my blood pressure. My blood pressure is very important.
Right.
I'm not saying that's not important, but like something more. Like this. No, I see you, right? Like I see you. I see like your culture. Like I'm an
Right.
immigrant mom, right? This is my first time experience something like that's very,
Yes.
like not a challenge. It's something that's very good, but like how is the word? Like it's something that is,
Transformative.
yes, love that, transformative. And in another country, if like in my country it would be difficult. You can imagine like living here far away from my
Yes.
family, and in a unfortunately, like they are all of them, they are like in Brazil, and I'm here, but like the challenge, right, like of like living far away from your social support, right, like this word that you use a lot, but and not having that connection, right, like not having someone that understand you. It's very challenging even for me, right? I imagine I've been working in this area for so long, right, like
Mm-hmm.
15 years maybe, and
Yeah.
doing research about that, working with moms, being a nurse, and I've been thinking, like in the other moms that maybe they don't have like a background in health, in the health area,
Mm-hmm.
they know like they don't feel that they should advocate for themselves, right? I have a lot of, I create a lot of like a social support around me here in Las Vegas,
Yes.
and sometimes I feel very alone, like like I feel that
Mm-hmm.
okay, where I can find like the support that I need.
But love, that's not exclusively a you experience or even an immigrant experience.
Yeah.
The loneliness that we feel, I think in general for all people, but in particularly for people who are pregnant or have children, is a flaw in the system.
Yeah.
It's an issue with the system.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live in communities that allow us to thrive. If we're thinking about Las Vegas in general, we
Mm-hmm.
have healthcare provider shortages. We have shortages in almost every realm. And
Yes.
so while it's a place of a lot of conveniences
Mm-hmm.
and there are pockets of community,
Yeah.
and I personally have a really amazing community in Vegas, there isn't a normalization
Mm-hmm.
around community care. And so no one was ever meant to parent alone. And there's a really great quote that two parents alone with a child is a crisis.
Wow,
Because,
interesting. The,
I mean, if we think about mental
yeah.
health, if you're struggling with your mental health, your partner is 50% more likely to also develop a perinatal mental health condition.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if two parents are struggling with their mental health and trying to take care of themselves and a child and their relationship, they need other people to come in, elders,
Yeah.
peers, and to offer that wraparound support. And so, even if you do have a great community,
Mm-hmm.
we don't live in the ways that allow us to thrive.
Uh-huh.
And then we internalize that as, oh, this just must be my hormones.
Yeah.
This just must be in my head. Maybe I'm just being emotional.
Yeah.
And the reality is, perinatal mood disorders and mental health conditions are really high in the United
Mm-hmm.
States because we lack comprehensive support.
Yeah.
It is not because of your hormones. There's actually no data to suggest
Mm-hmm.
that depression is because of a chemical imbalance.
Uh-huh.
And yet it's still a pervasive myth because we blame the individual for the
Yes.
ways that systems fail us.
Yes. Wow, that's so powerful, right? And and like so concerning as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can imagine like I don't remember the prevalence right now, but like it's so high, right? I think it's around like 50% to 20% for
Well, if we're thinking about anxiety,
mm-hmm.
postpartum and perinatal anxiety, perinatal meaning during pregnancy, pre-COVID, it was about 1 in 3
Mm-hmm.
people, 1 in 5 to 1 in 3. And it's much higher now post-COVID/quarantine because there was such deep isolation. And,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some memes about like these feral children who were born during the
Uh-huh.
pandemic are now going to start kindergarten. And, having a 4-year-old, I was pregnant during COVID and quarantine. And, I think being able to contrast my motherhood experiences, when I had my daughter, I got pregnant at 20. It was a planned pregnancy with somebody I loved and trusted. And none of my peers necessarily were having children that young. I thought I was grown because I was graduating, but I felt really informed.
Uh-huh.
During my pregnancy, became a childbirth instructor.
Well,
Shortly thereafter, I became a doula. I was in a position where I had a lot of knowledge. My daughter's temperament led to a really smooth parenting journey, but I didn't know any lactation consultants.
yeah.
And while I breastfed her, our journey was a little rough. I thought my nipples were going to fall off.
That's so
And then,
hard.
fast forward to COVID and an unexpected pregnancy with my son during a time where people were not sure what was happening in the world. And I was doing a lot of crisis work. And then he was born with a heart condition. And so
No.
it was just like a completely different world that he was born into. And I was a completely different parent with new circumstances. So, like, sure, you might think you know what to do with the first one or the second or the third, but every kid's different. I
Yes.
just want to, like, get that out the way. Every kid is different. But I was able to see how much having support with my daughter
Mm-hmm.
impacted my early motherhood journey, and how quarantining with an infant who was in the NICU,
Wow.
I had a lot of support, thank goodness. My doula and best friend set up a GoFundMe or a meal train.
Wow.
And so every day we were in the NICU, a different person brought me meals.
Wow.
And sometimes that was the only time I would eat in the NICU. But because it
Mm-hmm.
was COVID, it was only one person allowed in the NICU at a time. So I was
Yes.
there like 18 plus hours a day. And, um, I think so many parents who had their first child in the past 5 years
Yeah.
think that parenthood has always been this hard.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was a breeze beforehand, but thinking back 17 years ago, technology didn't play a role.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as mom groups online, and
Mm-hmm.
mom groups are like so toxic to me. I think
Uh-huh.
we're really cruel in those spaces. We're really judgmental, and
Yeah.
most of it's out of fear that, like, if we didn't do it the right way, then there's something wrong with us, and so we have to like
Yes.
be really harsh with other moms. But like that didn't exist in the past. I love this
Yeah.
like what's that? We share, we don't judge kind of thing.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Um, motherhood needs to be collaborative. It needs to be collective. It needs to take up space in our
Yeah.
lives in a way that's not all consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Childcare was different when my daughter was little, and I've always needed childcare for both my children. And just the idea that like childcare is so much more expensive now,
Uh-huh.
that the wait lists are longer. I mean, I waited over a year to get
Wow.
into the UNLV preschool for my
Wow.
son, and um, we had tried out two different schools and preschools prior to UNLV's preschool, and
Mm-hmm.
one closed, and the other one I had a really negative experience with a staff member
Uh-huh.
being physical with my child. And
Wow.
so I just think like um, we're doing a huge disservice to parents now
Mm-hmm.
and saying like, well, this is just what it is. It doesn't
Yes.
have to be this way, and it hasn't always been this way.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. I was thinking here also, you mentioned a little bit like about like this the feeling, even like when you need the care and you get the care, but you feel that you are doing something wrong, right? Like
Hmm.
um one thing that I was thinking was, like like you find the right places are so hard, right? The child care, that you feel
Right.
comfortable. But even if you find like at the right place, you still feel like that you are a bad mom because like you are not with your child, right? Like you are
Yes.
um I don't know. I think like my brain changed a lot, like in the past 9 months, and like this guilt, right? Like this,
Hmm.
like, do you have like any suggestion for new moms, or how did you deal with like these thoughts? Like, like of course, like so hard to find the daycare. At the
Yeah.
beginning, if you find something, as with you, you had like a bad experience with your child, and at the same time, if you find the right place, like you are not feeling, I don't know, I right now, like I'm telling myself like, what am I gonna do, right? Like, like
Sure.
how am I gonna like delegate or give like my child to someone that I don't know to take care of? So what do you say about that? Like this
Yeah.
feeling, fear,
The,
guilty.
this comes up all the time. And I'm going to talk about fear and guilt because I don't think there's a person that I've worked with that I haven't talked about this, whether it's therapy, doula, otherwise. So, the fear aspect, my daughter had to start daycare really early, just shy of 3 months postpartum, which was such a privilege because most people in the US have to put their children in childcare much sooner than that. That's a reality for many people. And so I remember being so afraid, like, what if somebody hurts her? And, I'm working with people who are experiencing trauma. And so I'm hearing these
Yeah.
stories and I'm trying not to internalize them, but I'm
Yeah.
so worried for my own child. And I had to come to a place where I reminded myself I can't stop every hurt or horrible thing
Yeah.
from happening to the people that I love,
Hmm.
but I can be prepared to support and love them and protect them and advocate for them if and when things do go wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's realizing that we can't control everything. We don't have power of everything. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
That's such a huge responsibility. And so the idea that we have to like hold this burden ourselves is what increases that fear, because that's not a reasonable demand on us. It's not a reasonable request of ourselves to be able to do all the things all the time all at once.
Yes.
And then that leads
Yes.
into the guilt, right? Is I've had to work full time with
Hmm.
with both my kids, and they've had to be in childcare. And my son, because of COVID and quarantine, didn't end up going to preschool until he was 18 months, which
Uh-huh.
felt like such a privilege. And so
Yes.
part of me was like, oh, I couldn't give that to my daughter. It's not that I was home during that time, I was working full time, but
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
it was all virtual. Um, I felt guilty that my children had different
Uh-huh.
experiences. I felt guilty that with both my children, I've had to work 40, 50 hours a week to make ends meet. Um, I would feel guilty if I wanted to prioritize myself, or if I felt frustrated or upset. My son is so different than my daughter. He is super adventurous and brave and pushes the limits. He wants to know where the edge is. He's humbled me as a parent. But when I talk to parents about feeling guilty, the thing to think about is you can't be everywhere all the time.
Yes.
And so a way that we navigate that guilt is by building a support team. And so unfortunately, everyone preaches community, but community is just not out there. You could pick it off a tree.
Yes.
Community is about investing time and energy.
Yeah.
And being a new parent or being pregnant is a really hard time to build community because it does take that investment.
Yes.
And so sometimes going to see a therapist, I tell my clients, I might be the first person in your new community, but I promise I won't be the last. Sometimes we have to pay for services. We have to pay for our community.
Yes. And that's fine, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if we lived in ways that supported our wellness, this would be a different conversation. But like, it's okay to pay a gym membership. It's okay to go get a massage. It's okay to pay a babysitter. It's okay to pay for daycare, because so many of us don't have the option.
Yes.
And so the reality is that if you can either build or buy this support, then you can build a community for your child.
Yes.
And I think that's so significant is I feel less guilty as I'm building a community for myself, because now my children have aunties and tias and uncles, and there's just people in their lives that are staples that we've intentionally connected in that way. And so when my son was going to the UNLV preschool, Miss Brenda is his teacher, and we love her so much. And I was so thankful that she loved my child the way I loved my child. And she was worried about him the same way I was worried about him. And I later found out that her child was born with a heart condition. And so, again, it's that disclosure and that sharing. And so even though I was paying for childcare, I was so grateful that somebody else was able to love my child so that I could go love on other people. Like sometimes we just have to recognize that it's an exchange, right? Like we might not get to spend the time we want with our kids in the way that we want, but we can bring great people around them and build up their community so that we can live in our purpose.
Yes. Wow, that's so beautiful. Okay. Wow. Yes. I was thinking here because you shared like so many things that I think like was new for you, like when you became a mother, right? Is that like something that during your postpartum that was like totally new, that something was, oh my God, even though, of course you had your daughter, right? Like when you were in the grad school, was there anything that like for you was, wow, I was not expecting that?
Yeah, I get so many things, right? Like I always tell my clients, doctors don't operate on themselves.
Yeah.
Meaning
Yes.
you can't do it all. And so my daughter, I had a lot of support. I was young. I definitely think there's something to be said about having children younger and older. So I was pregnant with my daughter at 20, and my son, I gave birth at 34. So definitely, a different body. And I was just like so surprised about the way that like my body responded to postpartum, the way mental health I responded.
Yeah.
And so, as a therapist, I'm like, oh yeah, I know these things. As a doula, I know these things, but I'm still postpartum.
Yes.
But I'm still, I'm still the patient, the client, right? And so, with my daughter, breastfeeding was a little bit rough in the beginning, but we breastfed until 13 months, and she self-weaned, and I had so much like grief about it. And I mean, in my hardest days of my son's pregnancy, I thought about breastfeeding my daughter. Whereas like with my son, I breastfed him for just shy of 2 years. And it was so challenging. I mean, the latching part was great, and I was able to feed 3 babies over
Wow.
1,000 ounces because I was able to pump in that way. But he was a biter, and I was like,
Wow.
I thought
Uy.
I was a pro at breastfeeding, and I got to a point where I was like, I hated my pump. I had aversion to my pump, and I felt really uncomfortable breastfeeding, especially because I was like, when are you going to bite me?
Wow.
Or even the idea that breastfeeding my daughter, I couldn't keep weight on, whereas
Yeah.
like with my son, I gained weight postpartum.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Um, with my son, I really struggled with postpartum OCD,
Uh-huh.
which I think a lot of people mix up with symptoms of anxiety.
Uh-huh.
And I had postpartum PTSD because of the NICU experience.
Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
so for a good 14 months postpartum, I was having these experiences, and my therapist brain was like, this is what's happening for you.
Yeah.
And I was able to vocalize that to my loved ones, but I still had to go through the experience. I was
Yes.
not exempt from it because I had the knowledge.
Yes.
And every postpartum experience is different.
It that's
And
so
so the
right.
the humbling is just a
Yes.
reminder that like I'm human and I can't anticipate everything just because I have lived experience or knowledge, that
Yeah.
we're all journeying together.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's so, so true. Yeah, one thing that I'm trying to do to myself is like, okay, I understand that I'm a nurse, that I have like the knowledge, I'm a researcher, but like, okay, but like maybe with I don't know, like the knowledge that I have, like I'm gonna give another meaning right now, right? Like I'm gonna
Yeah,
allow myself, okay, you have the technical knowledge, but now I'm
right.
gaining the experience that's totally different. And that's fine,
Hmm.
like if I don't know everything, if I need to ask help, if I know like some things, like, and
Hmm.
be gentle with myself, because sometimes,
Yeah.
because we have the knowledge, or do you think that we have the knowledge, we are very rigid, and like we want to do like everything, like based on the book that we read,
Hmm.
right? Like, and but it's so different, right? Like the lived experience, and to allow ourselves, to make mistakes, like to
Hmm.
live that experience and to give a meaning to that experience. Because I was talking with another friend that she just gave birth. Her son right now is 2 months, and she was telling, because she works, she is a researcher in the child development
Hmm.
area, like, and the breastfeeding, for example, was terrible, was like
Yeah.
such, it was so painful. She was expecting that, but when you live is totally different. And she I think like right now she's not giving formula anymore, but at the beginning she needed to like
Mm.
for some reasons to give formula, and she felt so terrible. She, like so like the guilt was so strong
Mm.
that like mess up with like like her mental health, and like with
Yeah.
the care that she was providing to her son. Like she told me that, I was feeling that it was giving poison to my son, because you
Hmm.
have like all that rigid like knowledge, but the experience is different, right? Like, and you need to
Yeah.
adapt. We need to leave that. You need to understand that your baby will be different, like from the perfect baby that we see in books, or not perfect, but
Right.
like that thing that you have in our brains that like,
Predictable.
yes,
Yeah.
predictable. Wow. Yeah. So
But I
yeah.
mean, when you have a baby, it's not about taking care of the baby. It's about establishing a relationship that's lifelong
Yeah.
and realizing that it's not about you perfecting it. It's not about you getting it right every time.
Yeah.
Something that I definitely find solace in and that I share with my clients is that based on research, you just have to be a good enough parent. And what that looks like is if a third of the time, 30% of the time, you are attuned to your child's needs, 30% of the time you are not and you get it wrong and you fail,
Yeah.
and the other 30% you spend repairing with them, that is good enough parenting.
Yeah.
So you only have to get it right a
Yeah.
third of the time, And then you
Yes.
spend a little bit of time repairing when you don't get it right. And I think that takes off a lot of pressure to realize that relationships are not just about one person being an expert. I'll never be
Yes.
an expert. I'll never be an expert mom, an expert
Yeah.
therapist. I think there's something to be said about humility, but also about um, accepting that everybody of every age and all experience levels have something to teach us.
Uh-huh.
If we can go in with that mindset, then what is our baby teaching us about ourselves, about
Wow.
them? How do we
Yes.
listen to anticipate needs instead of trying to predict needs?
Uh-huh.
It just changes the dynamic. It's so much less pressure. You know, I
Yes.
have moms that I work with that are like, I have to feed every 2 hours, and if baby cries, they have to wait. You know, I have to wake them up. And I'm like, well, what if we just observed the rhythms here?
Yes.
What if we cultivated an intuition about this? Because intuition will, for me, I think we over prioritize book knowledge.
Uh-huh.
Well, I read this in a book. Somebody said
Yes.
this.
Uh-huh. The author,
Research
right?
said,
Like the author.
right. But research evolves with time, science evolves, opinions, sway and wax and wane. But what doesn't change is your intuition. And the more you
Yes.
cultivate that, the less you have to rely on the outside noise. Because I think we've robbed parents of the ability to trust themselves.
Yes.
And so we force them to trust other people,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes who cannot understand their needs or don't know
Yes.
their circumstances.
Don't know the
And so,
child, right? The
right,
mm-hmm.
right. I will never know what's better for your child than
Mm-hmm.
you do.
Yes.
You're the
Yes.
expert on you. And so in therapy, it's not about me telling you what you should or shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
do. It's about what feels good in your body. Did that
Yes.
feel like you were responding in a compassionate way, in a caring way? Did that feel like you were honoring both your needs?
Yeah. Wow, that's yeah. That's wonderful. So it's so good to hear that. Okay, thank you so much. Like because
Yeah.
no, I'm thinking I think like the podcast is for myself, right? Like to prepare for my motherhood journey because all like I feel a lot of like weights like moving in my
Yes.
body because we like it's hard also like to put in words sometimes like all this
Yeah.
like this pressure that we have like this like and we tried all the time like to okay, let's get the better information, let's put like more weight instead of reflect about our own
Mm-hmm.
lives, our own skills, what the things that like maybe be more challenging for us
Yeah.
because like we are we are human beings and we have particular like skills and like experiences and yes, as you said, like sometimes we're gonna like give you some suggestions as a professionals, like
Mm-hmm.
trying to support our clients, but it like it it's hard to say like that's correct and like you should do this and
Mm-hmm.
that and this is the miracle answer for your problem, right?
Right.
Because we don't know like the reality, or if we know a little bit like partially, right? Like the child and the mom. So yeah, like maybe like less weight, like more intuition as you mentioned, like more respect, like
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah. I mean, even the idea that solutions, right? We're so
yeah.
solution focused
Yeah.
because we are averse to discomfort, and
Mm-hmm.
discomfort is necessary for growth. And so when we think about any relationship,
Yeah.
whether it's a therapeutic relationship, a student teacher, a partnership,
Mm-hmm.
I encourage people to ask when they're being told something, do you want solutions or support?
Uh-huh.
Because sometimes we just need someone to witness us. More often than not, we just want to witness.
Yeah.
Because when
Yes.
we are witnessed, we can sit in the full spectrum of our experience,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where reflection happens.
Yeah.
That's where we get to decide what our body, our gut, our heart is telling us, and it's not colored or shaped by someone else's opinion.
Yes.
If
Yes.
we genuinely need solutions, great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think support is what most people really want. They just want
Yes.
somebody to witness.
Yes, yes. Wow, that's wonderful. Um, of course, like we are running out of time, right? Because
Yeah.
like I told you that I planned for something, but like could be much more than that, and it's so wonderful, so healing. Also, our conversation
Mhm.
therapeutics, it's so good. So I'm gonna like move to the conclusion of the podcast, not hold you
Sure.
here. I would stay here like for 24 hours, but I know that's late for you. So let me see like how I'm gonna rephrase, because I'm 36, yeah, weeks right now, close to
Mhm.
37, right? My first baby. So I would say, like for moms that are experiencing, like this period, like preparing to go like to this motherhood journey,
Yes.
um what you'd like, any reflection for this period, right? We don't want, like a recipe, like something, a solution, as we
Right.
just spoke about, but like a reflection. What do you, suggest, or what do you know what else, right? Because you added so much, so, right, already. But for this period that I'm living right now, what do you say, to moms that are going through, embark in this journey?
Yes. Motherhood, parenthood is a sacred journey, and not because it's beautiful, not because it's a romantic version of ourselves or our relationships with our children. It's sacred because this is a time in which we are messy,
Mm-hmm.
where we are struggling and growing and transforming. And so I urge people to steer away from toxic positivity.
Mm-hmm.
There's significance in a mantra. Sure, we need to have hope. Hope is different than toxic positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we're thinking about things that we often hear people say of like, enjoy the moment because they're only this small for so long. There was so much of my early motherhood journey with my son in particular where I was struggling and I
Mm-hmm.
did not enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
And that was okay
Uh-huh.
because that's the way that we forged our
Mm-hmm.
relationship. That's the way in which I grew and understood myself and how I had changed.
Uh-huh.
And so when we talk about it being sacred, sacred transformations require support,
Mm-hmm.
they require patience,
Mm-hmm.
honesty, reflection. And so for people who are like, it gets easier when they get
Mm-hmm.
older, I can tell you my 17-year-old takes as much emotional labor as my 4-year-old. Um, Motherhood is a lifelong journey, whether you have living children or not,
Yeah.
whether you are an adoptive parent,
Mm-hmm.
a biological parent, whether you're a partner. And so parenthood is challenging.
Yeah.
And if we can embrace
Mm-hmm.
the ways that it's challenging, sit with what we might need in that moment, and try to create the community or the support we need, we're going to do far better than if we try to fight or move towards perfection or gaslight ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if you're a messy mom. It's okay if you're imperfect. Nobody expects that from you because we're all doing this in the
Yes.
same messy, imperfect way.
Yes. Wow. Wow. That's wonderful.
Yep.
Whew. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kay. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
insights, your reflection. It was so good to hear from you and to learn from you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like embraced, like all this,
Mm.
yeah, thank you so much. I'd like to say to you, like, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can share with your friends, with a friend that needs to, like to to have like this embrace, to receive like this care. And I hope like you enjoyed our conversation here today. Take care of yourself, like give space for yourself to live this moment. And I hope I can see you all in the next podcast. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope to see you in other episodes, like like to have you back here, to have
I hope so too.
this therapeutic conversations with Kate.
And, you know, to your audience, I think that it's important that we don't gatekeep information. So if anybody is like, oh, I have a question, or where do I get a resource? Even if they're not looking for therapy or doula services, I encourage people to reach out because if you've got a
Mm-hmm.
question, I'm happy to answer it. I've been doing this work a long time. I know what exists in our community. So I just want to invite people to
Amazing.
email, ask questions, reach out.
Amazing. I'm going to put your website here in the description of this video so they can
Perfect.
access that. They can contact you. Do you have like social media as well?
I do. I'm at K and Me on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, and then Heart and Soul,
Heart
like
and
the
soul.
Sun, SOL
Uh huh.
Collective. We post a lot, and we have a ton of free community-based
Yes.
workshops, and we have them in English, Spanish, Portuguese. We've done ones in Tagalog. So
Wow.
um, there's a lot of different ways to connect, whether it's on social media. If they go to my website, I usually respond within a day.
Wow.
At least I try. Um, so yeah, I'll give you all my info and you can put it in the chat.
Yes. Amazing. I'm gonna have like all of this information in the description of the video so you can access that. But thank you so much, Kay.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to hear about your birth experience when and if you're ready to share that. I wish you the most empowered experience you can have because birth is messy. Sometimes it's magical, sometimes it's orgasmic, and sometimes it's not. And so, whatever it is for you, just know that um, there are women all around the world doing that same exact thing with you in that exact moment. And so, you know, there is a community of people being a warrior alongside you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, bye bye.